Yeah, that's still Carton, fellas. I'm sorry.
Matt?
Sorry.
Yes. Wait, no, which Matt?
Your channel was edited.
Wait, which? Were we talking to me or Skinner?
Nah, that'll be me. My bad. I'll shut up.
User
Okay.
joined your channel.
Too confusing having
User joined
Matt's
your
here.
channel.
Alright, if we can just have
Didn't
some
think we'd get
silence,
so
that'd be
many people.
fantastic. We're a bit
User in your
behind
channel
now.
timed out.
Oh, there we go. That's number 1. Keeping record, Zach. Add that to the
Greg
minutes,
timed
Peter.
out. Greg timed out.
So we're gonna
We'll
start.
get-
Was moved
yeah.
to your channel.
Alright, so give us a sec, guys. We'll be underway shortly.
User entered your channel.
What's Whitey doing up there?
Oh, I moved him up there because I needed to make less than 50 people
User
in the
was
room.
moved to your channel.
Alright, Greg, that's number 2, so number 3 and you're out.
Excellent.
Legit?
All right,
Harsh.
welcome everyone.
Is the musical aviator here yet?
Alright, guys, can we just have some silence, please?
Okay, so speaking of the musical aviator, Trent, are you going to record this in some way? Was that what I heard?
Yep, that is correct. That's an easy way of doing meeting notes.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so welcome everybody to our semi-annual town hall meeting. I just wanted to touch on a few things at the top before we move into basically question time and discussion amongst you guys. So basically, the way the meeting will work is we've got our 5 VATPAC directors sitting here. We'll run through a number of topics where you guys can ask questions of the board and of the senior staff, and we'll do our best to answer them or take notes and take that information away to work on basically what you guys want out of your experience with VATPAC. The meeting rules will be basically if anybody has a question, they should type their question to me via private chat. I will put them in an order and I will field those questions to the relevant director as we go through the evening. In general discussion, if you'd like to contribute, please just press the talk button for a second to light up your talking light in Teamspeak, and we will get to you as best we can. We may not get to everyone, but that at least gives us some form of order in the way we call on you guys for your comments and questions. But yeah, if there's any specific questions, please just pop them in text to me as we go through, and try to keep them on topic for what we're discussing at the time. We will get to pretty much every topic as we do. Just wanted to touch on early the achievements that we've made since the last town hall meeting. These meetings have been very successful in the past in us responding to you guys. The last meeting we had, I believe we had 2 town hall meetings, one general one and one specifically addressed to events and communications. Since that time, we've seen significant upgrades in the website, made things easier to find. I believe there's still some work to do, and we're looking for your feedback further on those things. We've introduced a whole new ATC Assist program that was giving us trouble last time. We've moved our entire website to a different server to try to address some of the hardware issues. We've instigated a newsletter system that's been very successful in presenting our events and information to you guys as a group, and we've done lots of work in improving our communication through social media. They were the main ticket items that came up in the last meeting, and I just wanted to point out that those are the things that we are working towards and we have achieved in the last 12, 18 months since the last meeting.
Amen.
So, without further ado, I'd like to move on to questions. I'd like to kind of structure it to certain topics as we go along. And the first thing I'd like to talk about is website IT and communication. If anybody has any particular comments or questions they'd like asked, as I said, just pop them in a private message to me, and I'll divvy them up as we go through. As those questions are coming in, I'll just open the floor to any of the other directors that would like to have a comment before we get started on those questions.
That was directed at you, Zach.
I have no comments at the moment.
Peter?
Nothing so far, but I envision we'll get on to some ATC training stuff shortly.
Okay, I'd like to ask that any questions that do come through through text be serious.
Do the questions have to be through text?
No, if there's nobody talking, by all means, jump in and ask a question.
All right. Well, I have a question about the ATC training, and say you fail the tower exam, do you email the questions that you got wrong to the VATPAC staff, or do you just disregard and just wait 7 days and try the exam again?
So in general, you won't be able to progress to the mentoring stage unless you've got a successful pass on the theory exam. If you've failed the exam and haven't met the minimum mark, then you don't need to forward any answers. That's only required when you achieve a passing mark. And those answers are used by the training team during your mentoring to help focus on areas that you might have struggled with. But like you said, you don't need to forward any answers until you've achieved a pass mark.
Oh, thanks, mate. That's the way. Because like, with the score I got, I'd be texting answers all day. I shouldn't try, eh? I have another question. What is with do you have to, like, say you're flying a 737, like a default 737, can you just like request like headings, like vectors? Because like I put that in my remarks, and like I got given the whatchamacallit, the Campy 3 departure, and I requested no SIDS or stars.
I'm sure if you ask the controller for a vector or radar departure, they'd be happy to accommodate you.
Okay.
Okay, we have a question.
Not saying it in your remarks.
We have a question directly relevant to website IT and communication, and the question is, the Facebook engagement has been better since the last time I was here for a town hall meeting, but I believe it could be still more engaging. As I've noticed, there is very little user feedback, i.e. likes, comments, etc. Can anyone come up with any ideas?
Sorry. It was me that put that question forward, and I guess I'll be opening this up to everyone else, not just the staff team here, because it's, pretty much the majority of the time it's going to be the users responding, which is the rest of us here. Is there anything that could do better?
Yeah, to add on that, can you like post stuff onto the VATPAC Facebook page? Because there's like heaps of different VATPAC Facebook pages, and I don't know which is the actual official one. Oh, thanks, Cal.
Guys, just on another note, not everyone is on social media. I can tell that I'm not. However, I try to follow as much as possible via the VATPAC events website, as well as any forums that may be online. So, as well as the newsletter, which is fantastic. But yeah, I'm not on social media. So if I may be missing out on anything, yeah, I'm sorry. Maybe we can utilize other sources.
That was the plan with the newsletter. Is the reasoning behind that was that not everyone's on Facebook, not everyone checks the forums, and not everyone likes to go looking for information. So people just want to have that handed to them in a platter, and we do that once a month via email. I don't know if if we'd want a separate mailing list just for events and that to go out every 2 weeks or every week if the interest was there for it. But I think majority of people are on Facebook, which is why we use that as a primary means of like advertising and stuff, and the newsletter is more of a monthly thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Zach, yeah, you've actually got not a bad idea. Maybe even just like a picture of a calendar with the upcoming events to the people who want it. That might be a good idea. And yeah, oh gee, sorry, I've missed your name, Christian. That's right. Yeah, I do fully understand not everyone is on social media, but I would assume the majority would be. That's why I brought it up, because I've been out of the loop for the last 6 months, and I'm seeing, more and more posts from the VATPAC team. But yeah, I keep seeing no one's replying, no one's interacting with it at all. And I just, we should be, or for the people that are on social media, there should be a bit more interaction there. I'm just wondering how we can get, as a group, that going a little bit better. That's all.
Yeah, my understanding of the way Facebook works is that, if and someone else can correct me, but if no one likes your post doesn't actually come up in people's news feeds. So the more people that like your post and interact with your post, the more chance of your post going to appear on someone else's news feeds. So it's a self-perpetuating thing. If more people start liking the posts and commenting on the post, more people will start seeing, and then start liking, start seeing, start liking, start seeing. It starts to self-perpetuate. So that's the goal. But yeah, it's a question of what better content can we post on there? Is it, we had a discussion about this in the board meeting, is it facts or just event information, or pictures? Are pictures more engaging, or videos, or Trent posts the weather for milk run every Monday, which gets a fair bit of engagement in that. Is that what people want to see? Weather updates and stuff like that. So I guess, yeah, does anyone have anything they want to see on Facebook, like in their newsfeed?
I think for the sake of keeping things short, maybe we could open a forum post on this and get more interaction along these lines on the forums, just so we don't spend the next 20 minutes talking about it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, and I might also jump in that essentially the calendar and our front page of our website.
Oh, is that Trent?
Yep, that's Trent. Front page of the website and the calendar, which is also a link to the calendar itself, is the primary means, and then Facebook's a secondary means, which I often use, obviously, as the weather, or just a reprint of the front page.
And I must say, I do like the weather. Like, you guys have taken on what I said last time and made it better, and I applaud Trent and the rest of you for that. But yeah, if we keep going, it can't get worse, can it? But yeah, we'll put the rest of it to a forum post in the, for keeping us here all night, I guess.
Okay. I just seen a couple of things come up. So one message from Jeremy about put what controllers up are on. Yeah, so if you actually look on the front page of the website, vatpac.org, any controllers online is on the front page on the right hand side. Sometimes it gets a bit busy on Milk Run, for example. There's a whole lot of people there, and it actually sort of fills up the whole page. So I've been looking at a solution to make it look a bit more prettier. But that information is there, and there's also an intention to build a small map just for VATS in Australia and New Zealand with online people, online ATC, because obviously VATSPI is not always current for everybody with the latest sector files and stuff like that. So yeah. Another question I saw.
Just quickly, Zach,
just
hitting back. Theodore had some input in relation to the last subject. Do you want to chat about that, Theodore?
Yep. I believe on Facebook, you could have something about putting in your notifications whenever someone posts to VATPAC, the group page. You can have notifications on, and it'll tell you when someone has posted. You could go look at that and then have a like or comment or something, so you don't miss it.
Yeah, I have it set like that up for me, and it works wonders.
Yeah, and I have a question. What's with how it comes up with weekly top pilots and weekly ATC? Why do we only have our VATSIM IDs, not our actual names?
That's just an issue with the
User in
code.
your channel timed out.
When we changed, like there was a whole bunch of crap with the code from many years ago that was running the statistics, and so we had to upgrade that when we changed servers a few months ago because the new server didn't support the old code because the old code's not safe. We had to change a bunch of things, and with the changes, I removed the names because I had quite a few emails from people telling me, "Can you change my name?" Because it comes up with the first name you ever sign on VATSIM with. So, for example, mine said Zach Beasy Fit in Brisbane because I don't know why I put Brisbane there, but that was the first thing I ever signed on VATSIM with, and that's what stayed forever. And so I'm going to eventually, and probably soon actually, fix it, and it will go back to showing your current names, and it'll update every time you sign in. But that's why it's not there at the moment. It's not because like security or we can't show you names or something. It's just because the code changed and the database changed, and the names aren't there at the moment.
Okay.
But it's a work in progress.
Sweet.
Anybody got anything else on that? Otherwise, I've got another couple of questions. One was about making things easier to find on the website, like a search bar. Yeah, so I guess, there's nothing on the website for a search bar at the moment. That's something I can definitely add in. In terms of finding documents, which what the question was specific for, I've got sort of like a library type thing in the pipeline, which is going to have all the documents from stuff to do with ATC training, stuff to do with operations, policies, etc. All that stuff on a dedicated site for documents with all the change logs, and everything's up to date, and it's all in the one spot. It's all in a folder structure, and there'll be a search option there. So if you're looking for a document, you just search it up or go through the folders and find that latest update. So that's the plan with that stuff. And yes, I'll definitely look at adding a search bar for just finding FAQs or something like that. I think that next question that I can see in my document is about utilizing social media. I think we've pretty much already talked about that. The suggestion is to also add things on the VATSIM website and VATtastic. I guess I'd handball that off to Paul about actually advertising the events. Paul.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Talk about events later in the meeting.
Okay. Can the email newsletter be numbered and listed on the web page? I haven't had an email for Yonks. On the website, on the very main page, vatpac.org, you'll see underneath the who's online, underneath the helpful links, is the VATPAC mailing list. Enter your email in there. It'll redirect you to MailChimp, I think, and it'll ask you to confirm, and you'll be on the list. There's like 600 people on the list at the moment, which is a fair few. And roughly 50% of the people open the VATPAC email, which is actually quite a good open rate. So we send an email out every month, roughly between the 1st and the 10th of the month, and it varies from bits, forum posts or news, events, updates and stuff. So if you'd like to see more content in that, I can certainly push the staff to provide more content, because at the moment, most of it's just sort of looking around and seeing what's going on. Where's the questions gone?
I've got a question. All right.
Just
What
one
about?
sec, Jack.
Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, okay.
What about like spreading out ATC controllers? Like, for example, there was like 3 or 4 controllers at Melbourne this afternoon, and there was nothing happening at Sydney. Like, I thought like in the VATPAC training for the ATC, like that was one of the things that like you had to like spread out more controllers.
Yeah, so the VATPAC policy is that you should try, as a controller, you should try to cater to the maximum number of pilots as possible, and that includes logging on to a broader area if you can. That's a policy. It's something that we encourage people to do. Occasionally, people want to staff up one location, and that's fine as well. But definitely we want to encourage people that if there's pilots on the ground at Sydney or there's pilots on the ground in Perth, to consider logging on to provide ATC services to those pilots in preference to having a delivery, a ground, a tower approach on at Melbourne for 3 pilots.
Yeah.
Yeah, better for those, say they're all S2s, those 3 S2s to log on to Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne instead of all at Melbourne, and they can provide at least, that means the controllers get to do more, and then the pilots at those different airports actually have ATC.
Yeah, and I have another.
I'll keep. Is it IT related question, Jack, or is it?
It's more like ATC stuff.
I'll leave that for now. Got a couple more IT ones we want to get through quickly. Question is about ATCS being redesigned. The design. Greg will back this up. I'm not a huge fan of the design, but the intention with the design was to be similar to Euroscope TATS style. I don't know if anyone's got any suggestions for the thing. I just based that design off when I went to Melbourne Centre and did a tour. They have a little screen and similar style to what we've made ATC Assist look like, is a couple of boxes with the radar, with the weather, and Harrison and Jacob did a good job putting that together. So I don't know if anyone got any suggestions about how they want ATC Assist to look.
Yeah, I reckon it should. It looks okay. It needs restyling though. I feel there should be a search bar at the top, not a search bar, a nav bar at the top, with links to the part of the page that they want to go to.
Okay.
I reckon it was okay the way it was. Probably tweak it, but the way it was beautiful.
It's actually looks quite similar to the way it was. It's more the styles changed. The problem with the previous version was that it was actually the way it was built. It was, I don't know, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the code didn't work very well and there was often errors. So we had to change something, and we thought we changed the look as well as changing the background code to it. A couple of questions about, or a couple of notes about never getting the parts to open. I'm not sure why.
Also, on that, the weather panel's broken on it as well.
The weather panel?
Yeah, the weather radar.
That should have been fixed the other day.
Yeah, no, it wasn't, because I was using it today and no good.
I just opened up the weather radar at Sydney and it worked fine, so.
What airport are you looking at?
Melbourne.
Okay, yeah, so it looks like there might be some issue with the data there in the database about, what radar.
Can I jump on that?
Yes.
Rob. My question
Yeah,
is the website. Obviously, with some people being on Facebook and social media and some not, it's been raised before about would we benefit as well from having something, say in the pilot drop-down section on the website, with a link to somewhere to find scenery for flight sim, being that there's many times where I've controlled at certain towers and a lot of people online are running default and aren't probably aware that there's scenery for those airports available. Where they choose not to download them or use them, that's entirely up to them, but maybe they don't know they're available. Now, I understand that it's been brought up with that freewarescenery.com website, but maybe if that's in the drop-down menu on the pilots, at least people know where to go to.
Yeah, okay, I agree. I was going to say, it's probably too hard to maintain a list of the exact scenery, but certainly we could provide pilots, here's the pay, here's Orbex, here's the freeware stuff, go to these places. So yeah, if that's something that you guys would like, I think if one of the directors wants to say no, but I think that's something we can do for sure. Just we don't have the resources to maintain an accurate list like the other websites do.
Good thing is the other websites do.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
If you point them to that freewarescenery.com website, at least they can go there, and that's pretty that's updated pretty regularly. Yeah.
And just to finish that last topic about ATC Assist, I'll definitely speak with Harrison and with Jacob and see if we can optimize the design a little bit. But I guess that's all. The point's been made. Let's just check the document.
Zach, I'm happy to help with the styling for it if you need assistance.
Yeah, I think I lost your email, so just send me your email again and I'll add it to my contacts just in case. There's a question about, is there a way to view all active controllers, Oceanic endorsed and visiting controllers, just how VAT New Zealand have this set up? I have a script that Greg made running in the background that actually does keep track of who logs in and out and what their rating is, but that's only based on the position that I think they logged into, so I can't quite remember, but there is a possibility to have like a roster as such, but it's more difficult for VATPAC because we have so many people. You know, you've got much less people in it. So for example, VAT New Zealand and, you know, Los Angeles, ARTCC, whatever, those guys, they don't have as many controllers, so it's easier for them to maintain a list. But for us, it has to be something that's automatic, and so it might not be as accurate, so we just have to figure that out.
Zach, if I may,
yes.
Pacific Oceanic Partnership website maintains a list.
That does maintain a list. That maintains a list of the Oceanic approved controllers on that whole agreement. But I think there was also a question about like the controllers that are just domestically controlling as well.
Yeah, the Oceanic thing's a very manual process as well.
Yeah.
So what was the question in relation to domestic controllers? Do we need a list of domestic controllers?
Yeah, just is there a way to have a list of the controller roster like this person has seen on other websites? And then there was a separate question that I started with about the Oceanic endorsed and visiting controllers and stuff like that. Visiting controllers is on the website. It's under the I think it's operations and authorizations or something like that. Where is it? Controllers, authorizations, or controllers, visiting controllers. That's the list there.
Is it something that's going to benefit us for the purpose of what we're doing, considering that everyone who's a rated controller within VATPAC airspace is rated for the position for which they hold a position in, which can be found on the stats server? If you look at these other players that run rosters, is because they run endorsements. There's no requirement from VATSIM to maintain a roster.
Yeah, so I guess in my opinion, there probably doesn't need to be a roster as such for domestic controllers, but if that's something that everyone wants to see, then it's something we can explore, but we'd probably rather devote our resources elsewhere for the moment.
Excuse me, Zach, can I drop in for one sec?
Pete, go ahead.
Yeah, Zach, I just sent you a private message there, mate. Sorry, I have to go. I've got commitments. Yep, I'll send you an email.
Okay, no worries.
Cheers, fellas. Must go. Urgent.
Yeah. If I may, what about staffing opportunities? How often do they come up?
Yeah, so Jack, as I've just indicated to you in your private chat there, I'm taking a list of names that are posting offers at the moment. I'll just keep that list running. You're not the first person to ask that question, and we'll follow that up separately outside of the meeting. But your offer is noted.
Sweet.
They're always coming up. In fact, there's a couple of open positions, or there's at least one open position on the forums at the moment.
All right, I'm gonna go and apply for that, Sal.
User left your channel. User joined your channel.
Jokes.
Okay, there's one more question, or at least one more question here for IT. Just some users are not receiving the newsletter emails. I'm not sure why. Because I mean, we don't run that program. That software is run by a huge company, so it's not like they've made a mistake that's not sending the emails out. So if you are signed up to the newsletter, you should be receiving the newsletter. Maybe if anyone in here is not receiving the newsletter and has signed up, send me your email address and PM me, and I will make sure that your name email is on the actual thing. And if it's not, yeah.
Okay, so moving on from IT related
I think that's
stuff,
it, yeah.
and somewhat related is the resources that we provide you
User
guys.
disconnected from your channel.
We have a bunch of resources on our website and on the forums and in other places. I guess what we're after is your feedback on are those resources any good? Are they used? Are there any resources that we probably shouldn't bother providing in order to direct our attention into more important things, or anything related to that?
Yeah, well, I haven't controlled in quite a few weeks, and before that it was a couple months, but I did have the
User entered your
ATC
channel.
Assist open, and I've always had it since day dot open. Make sure you keep that up, otherwise I'm going to be a shot duck.
Greg, maybe there's some opportunity to include the local procedures that we used to have on ATC Assist into the new ATC Assist.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you're referring to the links that we used to have on to the old TMA settlements.
User in your
That's
channel
correct.
In the chart list. Yep. Okay.
That's correct. And we still
User
we
in your
used to
channel
have
timed
a
out.
very good piece of code in the old ATC Assist, which gave you preferential runways based on standard operating procedures.
User
Is there any
entered your
chance that
channel.
could find its
Yeah.
nose back out of the ground?
My understanding is that came down because AEST Services changed the way they distribute their text to ATIS.
Yeah,
and
that
we could
was
no longer tap into that to analyse the actual text ATIS that AEST Service was spitting out. That, and it was a fairly limited feature in that it was able to do preferred runway modes for Sydney and Melbourne and things like that, but it didn't really cover a lot of other places. But that's definitely something that I guess can be looked into. Again, at least read what the winds are and spit out what preferred runway mode might be appropriate. Zach, did you have anything to add?
no, just that I was going to say the same thing. Yeah, the reason it's not working was because the Air Services changed the way they submitted their data out through like an API style thing, and we can't access that anymore without paying thousands and thousands of dollars a month for access.
Okay, so I didn't realise that relied on Air Services Australia information. I just thought it was a table that read the winds and said, hey, this is the best runway.
Yeah, there
was
a bunch of functionality that came from the Air Services feed, and I think that was related to it, and that's why it basically stopped at the same time as the real world ATIS stopped appearing.
Okay, no problem, thanks.
Kurt, would you like to touch on to the group the schedule of updates that occur with both sector files and documents?
Yeah, no worries. So at the moment
You're a bit quiet, mate. You sound like you're next door.
Is this any better?
That's certainly better.
Nice. Is that better?
Sounds like you're underwater.
Perhaps you could just agree or disagree via text, but essentially we have an update cycle for sector files that's every 3 months. That's back on track somewhat now. Our last cycle was a little bit late due to staffing changes. The documents, however, do get updated on a less frequent basis, and there is a checklist that the guys run through to ensure that they're updated. If anybody has any input on the frequency of those updates and the sort of content that you want to see in things like our local instructions and so on and so forth, please just speak up.
Just want to mention as well,
I'm
currently working on fixing up the majority of the ground layout problems people are having with things like some Brisbane taxiways and, more notably, the Perth taxiways. They are being fixed, so stop asking, please. Thank you.
Yes.
I would like to see, I don't know what the current update schedule is for the local instruction files. However,
User in your
a
channel
lot of
timed
them
out.
seem to be a bit out of date, you know, since before the major AIRAC changes, which saw a lot of SIDS and stars go, and I don't know if it's the intention to have SIDS and stars in them still, but for when ATC assist goes down, which, you know, it has happened, it would be great to have sort of that second source of information that people can use. But everything's really outdated at the moment, so I guess what is our current update cycle, and could we look at moving it forward to the same frequency as the AIRACs, or even more frequent?
As Kurt just posted, they're all being updated literally right now. So there's like a couple of volunteers outside the staff team that have been up volunteering and updating them for their areas, and then a couple of the guys in the staff team have been updating them for their areas. So they're all, I think all the updates are done. We're just updating the formatting now, so they'll be done pretty soon actually. I think Kurt would agree. Yeah, so they'll be updated from each AIRAC from this point onwards.
Okay, awesome.
That's what Kurt says.
Are they the TMA documents?
Yes.
Okay. Speaking of volunteers, I did try and volunteer a while ago and never got a response. And I tried again and still no response. What was going on there?
Who'd you contact?
Blake contacted me initially, and I spoke to him 2 weeks ago about it.
Yeah.
And then I forwarded his details on to Kurt, and I think Kurt's just been busy, but I'm sure it's not lost.
Alright.
User entered your channel.
Okay, so are there any other questions of an operational nature to do with? What's everyone's feedback on the new sector arrangements?
I don't mind it.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Very useful.
User entered your channel.
I think when they first came out, I had some feedback regarding them, and I believe we've heard some more from others. One in particular is a lot of us display the entire sector rather than constantly zooming and panning around, and I know that some people have mentioned, and I, having not controlled that position, I didn't have the problem myself, but I know some people have mentioned the just the length of the, I don't know what the primary sector is, but the one that sort of covers Mudgee and Carnarvon is quite tall from a north to south perspective, which means you're zoomed out quite a fair bit to fit the whole sector in. So whether Carnarvon itself can be put into another one just to reduce the length of it.
Greg, I'm happy to respond to that if being the person that put that together.
Yeah, I was going to say there was a reason that we discussed at the time, wasn't there? I can't quite recall what the reason was. It was to do with traffic separation and flow. You feel free to respond to that.
Yeah, so Carnarvon and Mudgee got put together mostly because there was, before the new sector files were done, traffic flow up towards Brisbane End was fairly limited, and extending airspace was difficult. So now with Carnarvon and Mudgee being joined, Mudgee and Carnarvon grab all the traffic that are basically doing the Cairns to Sydney trip, but it also allows that person in that sector to be extending their airspace to control Sydney, Brisbane, and all the way up to Cairns. So essentially the entire east coast of Australia, if the controller chooses to use extended airspace, can control the entire east coast down to Sydney, which was one of the main reasons that sector got put together like that. Also, if you separate them out, they're relatively small, unless you joined. We looked at a few different options about how we joined different sectors together, and there was not really a good option as far as how that could be rearranged using the real world sectors that exist in that area. You know, the other option was putting Brisbane in with Mudgee, but then that would stop anyone who wanted to extend further than Brisbane. So, yeah.
Right, I understand what you're saying, Joel, but can I suggest that in the past, when we have aligned, so obviously in the past we didn't sort of try and adopt the exact shape of the sectors we've tried to do here. Could I suggest that conforming to the actual shape, the exact shapes of the real world sectors is not necessarily what we want to go for. I guess what we really want to go for is a shape that suits our traffic patterns, and I guess that goes to my next point, where we've got all these subsectors around the major airports. They probably work pretty good for when we have a major event. But I do remember a couple of years ago when we had World Flight going into Learmonth. Obviously, we had some custom airspace arrangements to suit the traffic patterns that we were going to have, which were basically mass arrivals coming in from Perth and then mass departure heading out to wherever they were going next. We sort of had that flexibility to create an ad hoc arrival sector around Learmonth. Whereas now that we've set up the subsectors that we do have, does that potentially limit the options that the planning team have in regards to the airspace for that?
Yeah, David, can you just step out of the karaoke bar for a second?
David, I'll answer the first bit of that. I won't answer the last bit because obviously that goes to current situations. But certainly the aspects of how they come about, it was by far means a massive undertaking as far as rearranging all of our airspace goes. And as far as being able to do that, the easiest way of doing that, which is what we chose to go with, was being able to basically take the real world sectors. Peter was able to extract that information from the designated airspace handbook and then create our sectors based on that information. So there wasn't a huge amount of work that went into redesigning, boundaries and putting in GPS locations and all that kind of stuff, because it's all pulled straight out of the designated airspace handbook. Certainly at the time, the aspect was that we probably wouldn't have to do huge changes now for any airspace. So there was always a lot of activity around events like panic stations and stuff like that to create airspaces for them. But now essentially all of Australia is covered by both the standard and the non-standard en route sectors that go towards those events. So I'm happy to let now Greg or Kurt or someone else talk about how they manage the real world or event stuff going forwards.
Okay, I'd like to move this along, mindful that a couple of our guys need to move on fairly soon, and I'd like to accelerate through to events. If anybody's got any event questions to pop into the chat to me, please go ahead. In the meantime, while those questions are coming in, I'm not sure if Joel touched on it for David, but part of the decision to go with real world sector boundaries was to do with basically sourcing of the data of those boundaries and maintaining the sector files. It does make it a hell of a lot easier to be able to just pull those real world sector boundaries out, feed them into the database and pull out a sector that resembles a realistic shape rather than trying to make up lines all the time. Granted, that's not a common change, but it does make things easier on the team. There is one other operations question that came through that I'll answer for Kurt, seeing as nobody can hear him anyway. Basically, the question is to do with responsibility for sector files and documentation for Pacific areas, mainly Fiji, Mosby, Noumea and Caledonia, etc. And that, yes, that is VATPAC's responsibility. And we are taking steps to change the way we support those areas, and there will be changes coming in the next 12 months in that regard. There's also major changes possibly afoot in the wider regional context in that area. So I guess the answer to that is watch this space, but confirming that VATPAC is responsible for those areas. Okay, a few events questions coming through now. So the events guys, I don't know, Paul or Callum, if you'd like to respond, but just a couple of questions on the notes that we're taking there. If you'd like to just respond to those while I get together some of these new ones.
Oh, is that on the doc?
Yeah, in the document down the bottom.
Oh crap, where'd I put it?
While it's quiet, can I open up?
Go.
Just with events, so just to, obviously everyone's going to throw suggestions out. There's been a lot of talk with, obviously, when we were doing the Perth one, a few people wanting real world flight routes and events and stuff like that rather than point to point. So my suggestion would be, what about if we concentrate on a single area? Say, for example, on one night, if we concentrate on, say, northern New South Wales, you've got Coffs Harbour, Ballina, Griffith, Lismore. You could even run up to the Gold Coast and staff that area and allow people to, because you've got towers there at Coffs and you've got tower at Gold Coast, which then allows opportunities for people to fly both jet and regional in and around that area, rather than just do, say, your online night where we're going Sydney to Tamworth or something like that.
Yeah, so in terms of that, I have had a lot of feedback sent through to my email in relation to obviously engaging a lot more suburban routes as opposed to just the normal domestic larger airport routes. So in terms of that, there is some focus nights that we're planning on, some focus events that we're planning on, basically focusing on major airport departures and regional airport arrivals and vice versa. So as you said, the northern New South Wales, the southern parts of Queensland, you've got the northern parts of Brisbane up to Cairns and whatnot, as well as you've got Adelaide out to sort of the regional hubs, and you've got Melbourne out to the regional hubs as well as WA and Darwin. So there was feedback about that not too long ago, and it has been put in the list to be put together. As you know, when putting events together, there's a lot of things that we need to take into account, and that's something that we are doing, and you should see in the near distant future.
Disconnected from your channel.
Yeah, I understand that. The other question I've got is obviously with, say, Milk Run Monday, for some of us that have families, work, we can't get online till late, and a lot of the school kids, and no offense to them, like, get on when you can, do what you can. They're getting on at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and they'll sit on that all night to about 8:30 or even a bit longer. Can we not look at opening up the extra centre positions on that run so people can do Wollongong, Binduk, Snowy and the other sectors, so more people that can't get onto that later time can come on and control? Because it gets a bit frustrating sometimes when you look and see who's online and they've been online for quite a few hours, and then you go, okay, I'll fly. And then come 8:30, they all start logging off because a lot of them, I guess, have to go to school tomorrow.
Yeah, that comes back to the original system, which was great, where you had to book as a controller. And I think that worked well before.
The only thing is, and I'll leave this is more of a operational question as opposed to events question. Whilst we can't control when people, obviously jump on and control and what they do inside of the controlling, unless they're in breach of obviously any VATSIM policies. But in terms of that, I mean, I think, if the smaller sectors should never be opened unless there's traffic to support that. Now, in saying that, that's hard to support. There is policies in place. I'm not going to touch base on it because it's not my jurisdiction. and I believe it should be sort of an operational sort of stance. But in terms of that, I do agree with you. Obviously, we want to have as much ATC as possible. We can't force people to stay on during those nights, but we are looking also to have a lot more weekend events, Friday afternoon events as well as the normal events that we have on, which is our daily focus and you know, our discovery flights as well.
I would have thought Milk Run Monday would warrant opening up those extra centres because we do get the traffic. Sorry, I've got the flu.
You're right, mate. I'll leave that to obviously the operations department. It's something that, you know, I don't feel comfortable chatting about, and it's really not relevant to the actual events in terms of that. So as it's a frequent event and it's more airspace control as opposed to events coordination. So does anyone from Ops want to open up about that?
There's 2 points to that. Opening up the special sectors. I mean, it's one thing to say that people get online. Now, I live in WA, so I miss Monday Milk Run like quite considerably. But we've got to look at stepping on someone else's toes. If we go and open up Binduk, we've effectively reduced all the workload for that guy that's logged into Wollongong. Is that what we want to step on those toes as well?
Yeah, but if they're sitting on there for 3 hours plus, it's a bit hard for some of us that want to get on.
Unfortunately, that's the VATSIM rules. That my only suggestion is that you look at opening up something north of Sydney and take advantage of some traffic that might be coming down from Brisbane.
In essence, I think it's a consideration thing that if you do have someone that's been sitting on a position for a certain period of time and it's affecting, you know, obviously your experience on the network, then I think it's best if you approach that person and say, hey, how can we resolve this, as opposed to obviously, you know, resolving another way. So in terms of that, I mean, that's just the way it is, and there's nothing we can do to sort of change that as much as I'd like to. But yeah, as Kirk just stated, it's just the way that it is, unfortunately.
And just quickly, if I can touch base on one of the other things that Robert said about people not willing to fly into events because there's no real world traffic. I don't know that it's VATPAC's responsibility to bend over backwards to create events around real world traffic just so more people will participate. There needs to be some leeway from other people. If you want to have ATC and it's not where you want it, then I mean, it's not all about real world, is it?
That's
no,
correct.
but that's why I said if we look at concentrating on an area, say in the Brisbane TMA, where you open up Brisbane, Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast, it offers 3 different destinations for people to go to from Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, the northern Queensland area, rather than just doing Sydney Tamworth, where a lot of people, as an example, where a lot of people probably wouldn't fly. You won't see too many people online doing that night.
Yeah, I understand, and it's duly noted in terms of obviously organising events to have, you know, sort of coordinate the ATC to be spread out to, you know, more regional airports around the, you know, the main hub that we're focusing on, or TMAs as you would say. But in terms of that, as you said, as we always go, we can't force people to do things. If people don't want to do it, then, you know, we just have to deal with what we've got. But in terms of obviously the Northern Territory side of things, we are having, there was a discussion that we had in relation to that, and trying to, what's the word? Encourage people to stay on longer for you guys, as well as anyone else that's outside the time zone and people outside of that as well. And we are looking at obviously implementing another event that fits within your time frame, and something that's aimed for WA that should be happening at least once a fortnight. So there is a lot of stuff in the pipeline for that, because we do get a lot of feedback about WA and how we do neglect it. I must agree that is the case. There's a lot of east of Australia sort of focus, and that's something that we sort of just want to, you know, widen and broaden. And I know that a lot of people are stuck in their ways about their, you know, normal Milk Run, or they want to focus on the East Coast because, you know, the flights are a lot shorter. But in terms of that, I think, you know, to make it fair for everybody and to have a little bit of diversity, you know, we've got to start focusing on not just that part of Australia, but also, you know, Western Australia, Darwin, and all that sort of, and Adelaide. So I completely agree, and it is our focus, and it will be our focus in the next 12 months to, you know, for that side of Australia to be focused on. So.
Just while we're on the point of realism, I don't know if it's been touched here in the topic, but Perth, well done to the controllers over here in Perth. We got Tower for Iron Mike and Melbourne Ore Centre for Iron Mike. But for me, I know I speak for not people that may not be in this chat right now, but a lot of us who have setups here at home that are very realistic. And I was flying into Perth just last week, taking advantage of the the chance to actually have control over here. And I saw I think it was a regional jet coming in from Kalgoorlie or something, being cleared to approach onto the 2-4 here at Perth. Now, I don't know. My question is, are controllers supposed to abide by NOTAMs for the airport?
That's operations. Does someone else want to take that question?
Well, the easy answer is no. That's it.
Alrighty, thanks.
They can if they want to.
The controller can ultimately put an ATIS up that doesn't include that runway or that follows the NOTAM. But at the end of the day, if the pilot requests it on VATSIM, then they are entitled to use it.
Yeah, I completely agree with the control, but like it was stated in the ATIS that runway was open, and runway 24 here in Perth is closed since late last month. It's going to be closed right through to June for work. But yeah.
Yeah, so that's completely fine. That controller is 100% within their rights to either simulate that NOTAM or not to simulate that NOTAM. The important thing to remember when we're enacting real-life NOTAMs is that we need to be certain that they don't negatively impact the enjoyment of other users of the network, and that's what the previous talker was referring to when if a pilot wants to use runway 24, even though your ATIS says it's closed, you need to do your best to accommodate that requirement. I mean, that's a fairly unusual request because it's the shorter runway, but it's important that we keep that other user's wishes in mind as well.
Again, I completely agree.
Zachary, you have to realise it's a virtual thing, and I know you like to have reality as close as possible, but at the end of the day, it's just a virtual world, mate. You're just sitting at a computer, and I mean, it's like declaring an emergency, sitting at home, and who would do that? Declare an emergency on VATPAC.
True. Some of us who do have the big, like I have my own setup here with all the FMC and all that stuff. So it's when we try to follow real operations and real checklist, and then when we get to Perth, and then we find that other people are landing on when we've been following NOTAMs all the way, it's not frustrating, but it's just like we'd like a bit of realism. But
request runway 21.
Yeah, I got cleared for 2-1, but I completely agree. It's up to the controller, and it's up to the pilot. I'm not poking a stick at anything. My question was just, are controllers recommended to follow NOTAMs?
No. As a controller, sometimes there's been requests, there's been people following the real world NOTAMs, and I've tried to accommodate them as best I can, but there's been other times where you're a little bit too busy, or you're not feeling right in front of the scope, and you just try and get everyone through the same runway. It all comes down to the controller, but it never hurts to ask.
I guess the big thing here is that if we've got runway and taxiway closures all the time, you've got runways getting taken out for half an hour for whatever reason, and it would be a lot of work to organise all of our controllers to be following every single NOTAM that's out there.
Alrighty, thanks guys.
Alright, cool. We'll move on. Just some questions that have been popped through to us. The first one is, why is it that VATPAC does not attempt to use all the options available to make VATPAC any more well-known? I'm assuming. And does VATPAC need anyone to aid them in this field? So, in terms of that question, I'm assuming it means to advertise or make it well known across the VATSIM network. In terms of that, I mean, events does take a lot of organising, and I'm not making excuses up to why we don't post everywhere, and every second post is about an event. You know, in the process of obviously organising an event and delivering an event, we do attempt to make the appropriate means to advertise the event to VATPAC. Now, in terms of that, we have had feedback recently is why don't we post in the VATSIM forums? Why don't we post in the, there's other VATSIM groups? Whilst I understand, that sometimes events don't make it to the VATSIM forums, and I can take that as, that should be something that we should cover. We have taken that feedback on board just recently at our last board meeting, and it's something that we're going to be implementing in the new year. I know that we're into month 4 of the new year, but we have been working really hard on some really big events that are coming up for VATPAC in the next 6 months or so. So in terms of that, yes, we will be advertising, our events on the VATSIM on the VATSIM page, on the VATSIM forums. And in terms of that, you can also see now that our events do show up. Our events do show up on the VATtastic map as well. So that's another good thing in terms of obviously advertising. Now I'll quickly move on because there's a heap of questions here.
Can I make a quick comment, Paul?
Yep.
Very quickly, guys, if you put it into the VATSIM forums, it will end up not only on the forums but also on the front page of the website and in all of the VATSIM official social media. So you do spread for the sake of one simple forum post.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Yeah, that's something that we've had feedback at the last board meeting. I think it was Greg, in relation to obviously using the VATSIM forums as a means of advertising.
You do it once, we do the rest.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I think the specific discussion there was we were quite happy to go to those links for our major planned events, but our daily focus ones is probably getting a bit silly.
Yep. All right. I'll just quickly move on. A question for the director of events: can the director outline the events agenda for the year? Should the community expect a return of events such as penny stations or TMA turnaround? So in terms of that, there is. I'm not going to say what because I prefer for it to be a surprise, but there is some events that we're working on now. There is some major events that obviously do take time.
User in your channel,
and that's events such as penny stations and real ops that are coming back, as well as also another slot mania in the next 6 months also. So in terms of that, we do have big events coming. You will get notifications coming shortly, and yeah. So those are coming. I'm just looking. Okay, so monthly screenshot competition with a topic, WA topic. So people submit screenshots from WA. Best one by vote wins. Something. I think that's something to do. Take into account.
User in your channel timed out.
That's something we need to discuss as a group. It's more of a board decision on what we want to do in relation to competitions, what in relation to that. So that's something that will definitely be brought up between us, but I don't think I should be touching base. I would like to see more events from Adelaide to Melbourne, as well as Brisbane to Sydney, as not a lot of pilots want to fly 4 hours plus. I personally like to fly 2 hours max. So in terms of that, obviously we do have Milk Run, and there's Spilled Milk Run as well that happens once a month. So that gives us the opportunity to do that, as well as the fact that we are looking at obviously basing major events out of those 2 hubs regardless. So that's just a hint that there will be events out of those hubs in the upcoming events. Another question. I've got a question. Can we maybe get some events dedicated to virtual airlines? As being the flight ops director, we're looking to expand our relationships with VATSIM divisions, as we'd like to have an event with the division, but also have a major event within all the virtual airlines. In terms of that, that's a good idea. I'm more than happy for any virtual airline that's affiliated with VATSIM to reach out to me. You can send an email to events@vatpac.org. I'm more than happy to obviously accommodate any events that you guys want to put on and help organise. Just drop me a line. I'm more than happy to help.
Just on that as well, if you wanted to have a look at the current kind of events that sort of incorporates VAs in any way, I think Cross the Ditch, you can sign up a virtual airline and it'll tally all of the flights that your virtual airline does. But again, like with virtual airline events, if you have an idea or if you want to organise something, definitely just email the events team and we'll definitely be happy to promote and assist and obviously make that request to the community for ATC.
Yeah,
Yeah, if I-
and there's also on the website a suggest a flight form. I do get those to my email address, and that's where we do base a lot of our upcoming major events out of, or smaller events. So
Yeah, I'm getting lots of specific event types being suggested to me via text. So if any of those people that have sent through a specific event type would like to fill out the suggest a flight form on the website, it's under the events menu, and that'll go straight through the events team rather than fielding 20 different or somewhat similar suggestions here.
also in relation to obviously, we do have an affiliation program that the operations team do manage. That's something that obviously they can touch base on, or you can get in contact with the operations team to become affiliated with VATPAC, and then we're more than happy to assist and coexist with them in creating events. Just moving on because there's still heaps to go. We expected to see any events with other divisions, etc. Maybe this one on a month or 2 month occurrence. We were working closely with VATNZ in relation to obviously having events with them. We had a successful cross the ditch.
User entered
Or was
your
it
channel.
Cross the Grove? I can't remember which one it was. It was I think it was Cross the Grove. But yeah, we had a successful event with them, and that's something we want to start doing on a regular occasion. It's a really nice hop to hop over New Zealand, get the scenery, and then come back again. So that's something that we are working on, and we'll have to you guys again.
User in your channel was kicked from the server.
Another one here is what's stopping VATPAC having a monthly big event like Real Ops, etc. If it's staffing planning issue, ask anyone from the older
User
community.
joined your channel.
I didn't do too bad. So in regards to having obviously a major event each month, it would be fantastic to do. However, obviously it's stretching our capabilities of the events team to be able to organize and deliver major events. Also, by delivering a major event every month, it's sort of stopping, it's if you have one every month,
They're
it's
not
not going to have
major
the same.
events anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just events.
Yeah. So in terms of that, like we like to keep it, on a 3 monthly increment, so it becomes a major event, and it obviously gets the hype for people, and has a 3 month lead time to obviously get it up and running.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
What about inter-division events? Like when was the last time we hosted the America F&O?
That sort of stuff. Whilst to be honest, that hasn't even been brought to my attention in relation to interdivision stuff. So, if anyone has any suggestions like that, I'm more than happy to reach out to obviously other divisions and those events teams to come up with something.
Yeah, so I think Blake's referring to in the past where we've hosted the US Friday Night Ops down here on our milk run or something
Actually,
like that.
There's something coming up in relation to that. I'm pretty sure there was an email chain going around. So I know that's in the pipeline. Sorry, Blake. Yeah, there's something going around. I just have to follow that up.
All right, cool. And what about some of the other ones like Lemon Air Wednesdays or Pop Up Mondays?
So that stuff is in the pipeline. Our
User joined your
team,
channel.
being Callum, who's just come on board for special events as well. But our daily team and myself, we're coming up with a few different pieces that we've discussed at our last meeting, and we're due for an events meeting shortly too. So
Must be
that's
a
something we're
bloody,
building up.
bloody big pipeline, because there's a lot of stuff in the pipeline.
There's a lot of stuff in the pipeline, Jacob. More than happy for you to jump on board and check it out.
Are we looking at different time slots, say morning events or afternoon events, or just sticking to the nighttime type events?
No, so we, all our major events sort of stick around the daytime sessions on weekends, and then we look at Friday night as well. So we are looking at obviously expanding timeframes, different events on different days, and we're looking at we're trying to look at having more regular events during the week, and for them to be promoted as well.
Just for timing of events as well, realistically, we wouldn't really be able to have anything before midday Eastern time, because you got to wait for Western Australia to get up just so that everybody can we can get the most attendance at an event. And that's the main thing behind our timing for events at the moment. But I think it's definitely, we could look into doing more events earlier in the day.
There's all due credit to the events team, given that we've got 9% of the world's airspace and we're the only ones who manage it. For other VACCs, they've got one single airport and one centre. They've got a lot easier to host their nights and cover ATC a lot better than what we have. And to keep everybody happy, it's one of those things.
I thought WA was a great event. The month was good.
Yeah, it was a very entertaining.
I enjoyed WA.
Do people enjoy like focus events? Like if I don't know, I'm just putting an idea out here, but like if you did, for example, a focus event at Brisbane in 3 months, we did Brisbane Iron Mike or something with the July school holidays, and then Cairns or something in September, and then Melbourne or Sydney or something, like a major. I don't know. Do people enjoy just like focusing on one area for one bit, or doing the Iron Mike and etc.?
Yeah, I think it's great. Like any time we can get away from the city to Melbourne and get into regions that are not normally focused on, that is a great thing for both controllers and pilots. You're seeing new places, new procedures, etc. It's not a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination.
And scenery doesn't let us say, right?
Just with regards to sort of our focus on Western Australia, I guess a thank you goes out to all of the VATPAC and VATSIM members, whether you be a pilot or controller. Often the issues that we've had in the past is about taking events away from Melbourne and Sydney, is that people will still log on and control there. And I think it was fantastic that the community was so engaged in making this work, showing us that it's worth doing something like this again, that you are interested and that you will follow through. You won't just say, oh, I'd love to, we should do more events elsewhere. It's easy to say, we need to do more events elsewhere, but it's another thing to sort of act on it. And it was great to see the participation and everybody actually getting into the spirit of getting out of that Melbourne to Sydney. And if the feedback's been really positive, and in the future we could look at setting up a focus region somewhere else this year. Definitely, as Paul was saying, and even as Robert said earlier, regarding sort of instead of doing sectors, events between sectors, do more of an area so that we're encouraging more people to log on. It's definitely something that that we should look at, and that we would like to look at.
I think once the Perth scenery comes online from the guy, George, I think it's George who's doing it, I think more people might fly out of Perth.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if I could just comment from me personally, I'd like to sort of send out a big shout out and a kudos to everyone who pulled together in the last week to focus on Perth for the Iron Mike contest. We had actually planned to focus the Iron Mike on Perth on the week before, but a week late's better than never. And it was really impressive to see how everyone sort of got together and organised themselves, and not only from a controller perspective, but also from a pilot perspective, going over there getting those controllers something to do so they're not completely bored out of their brains while they're sitting there racking up these hours. It is difficult to do. You're not allowed to just sit there and log on to a position and go and watch the footy or whatever. You will get checked by supervisors to make sure you're attending your connection during all that stuff, and it was really good to see how the community pulled together both on the forums, in Facebook and other social media, and also online to get that job done. And as someone alluded to earlier, we did take out 2 out of the 3 categories for the last week, so I'm assuming that's centre and tower. Just missed out on approach, but that's a very good effort from everybody concerned. On the focus month, it's not something we're going to do all the time. I think everybody's hanging out based on the numbers. I didn't actually see the numbers last night, but I think everyone was pretty much hanging out to get back onto the Sydney-Melbourne milk run, because everybody's was screaming, "Can we go back to Sydney and Melbourne soon?" And yeah, that's good. We will from time to time. I think, given the success of the April focus month, that we will focus on a particular area from time to time. Yeah, it was just great, as Callum said, to see everybody sort of getting together and trying to make that work, and that was something that I went in with great skepticism. I was expecting to see a lot more people running the Sydney to Melbourne route and controlling the Sydney to Melbourne route than we have done in the last month. So well done to everyone there.
Yeah, I was quite surprised when I saw how many people were in between Melbourne and Sydney last night. I think I had 9 people in Snowy's airspace spanning from Melbourne to Sydney, so there was a good turnout on that one.
Just correct me if I'm wrong. The reason why people fly Melbourne to Sydney is because of the scenery. People would fly Tampa, Sydney, and Orbix, Melbourne. I mean, who wants to fly into some poxy little place that's got, just a little bit of grey strip on there?
I think it's a combination of I think it's a combination of
point.
scenery and just it's a convenient flight. It's under 2 hours. It's nice and short. You can probably do 3 of them before going to bed.
Yeah.
So is Adelaide and Melbourne.
Well, yeah.
I was controlling Sydney Tower last night. I was going to see all the traffic.
That's good, Aidan.
And that probably goes back to the point that Rob brought up half an hour ago, whatever it was, about, let's on Milk Run, don't open up, all the Sydney approach, Sydney Director, East and West. If you can, open up Brisbane, open up Adelaide, because they're all 2-hour flights as well.
That was good. I can't take credit for that.
Oh, but Rob, you were saying, you want to be able to open up the subsectors, but I think it's more important to be able to open up, more airspace across Australia. So open up Taylor Bend and Brisbane, and there, as you said, they're only 2-hour flights as well. So if people want to fly 2-hour flights, there's no excuse for them not to fly between Brisbane and Sydney and Adelaide and Melbourne, because they've all got scenery, and they're all 2 hours apart, and we can cover them all on Monday night. So yeah, maybe we should.
Well, we're blessed here in Australia. We've got a ton load of airport scenery around that a lot of other countries don't. So there's plenty here to utilise.
Yeah,
It's not just that, but like I said before, we've got stacks more airports than your standard, say Austria's. What do they have? They just have Vienna and Innsbruck that are the popular two. It's a lot easier for us to really spread our ATC out. And if you got to feel for those guys, if they run an event and someone logs onto centre, that's it. The whole VACC's gone.
Look, I would just like to say, as an X-Plane user, yeah, we don't really have flash scenery completely everywhere. Don't swear at me, but look, the main reason I know I fly the Milk Run Monday is because there's traffic. Where there's ATC and where there's traffic, I will be. On the rare occasions I am online, but that's what drives me. It's got nothing to do with scenery.
Just keep in mind with the scenery argument as well, we haven't actually had Fly Tampa Sydney for that many years. Even while Sydney was really just, the most we had was AFCADs for FSX, and obviously we had all the stuff for FS9 thanks to the guys back at Vista Australis. But even before Fly Tampa, we still had the same popularity.
Yeah, I agree with that. I wonder if it's
what it is with Sydney and Melbourne, and perhaps maybe if we consider extending to a little bit further out. We've got Newcastle up north of Sydney. We've got flights going in there from Melbourne. We've also got flights from Sydney down to Avalon, and perhaps expanding out that way is useful too.
I think maybe because it's so ingrained, the Sydney-Melbourne, Melbourne-Sydney sort of thing. That's why people can't get away from it, because they see it that often and go, all right, that's the one to fly on Mondays, I'll fly that. And yeah, as has been discussed, when you try and move the Milk Run Monday away like you spilt Milk Mondays, people still log on as ATC and still fly that same route because that's what they know.
I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with that, and the whole purpose of introducing the Milk Run Monday event in the first place was to capitalise on that. We've obviously got 6 other days of the week where we can go and explore the rest of the airspace that we have.
I think if you want to throw a spanner into the works from a controller's perspective, Milk Run Monday is just a conga line and it's all sequencing. If you really want to throw a spanner in the works, you come up from Hobart to Sydney, and that will really catch some people out.
Right, if you come in from Adelaide and Perth yesterday, that can be.
Or come fly out of Bankstown, because I usually control there.
Oh, yes.
Oh, let's go.
Okay, I just have one more question.
Yeah,
that's
Paul,
it.
I was going to touch on that. Is that the last one you're talking about there?
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm going to take that on, that question without notice, and I'll get back to that person about it. I need to discuss that with some other people first.
Yeah, cool. Just while I'm here, because I do have to duck, sorry guys, but is there any open questions for events? Hasn't been answered.
Did you get my message, mate?
Yes, I did. 1 second.
I actually cleared the
Yeah, that's fine.
the chat message.
Right.
The person
I'll talk to you later about it, mate.
The person who asked about possible prizes for major events, can you just send me a text message, please?
All right. Is there any other further questions for events?
And I've just got one on about some more community-based feedback for events.
Oh, yeah, I've got it here. Let me give it a quick read.
If you need, I can sing.
That's fine. So yeah, Mackenzie, in regards to, sorry, I'll just read it out. So Mackenzie is referring to obviously our engagement on Facebook and the forums in relation to putting up a poll to have a lot of a community-based feedback in relation to picking obviously destinations for events and or areas that we focus on in events. That's something that has been talked about within the between Callum and I. We really love sort of doing the engagement with the community. So that's something we're going to look at. There was a little bit of issues obviously posting on the group because the group's technically not a VATPAC official page. So there was a little bit of discretion that we need to use, and it was brought up, I think, at the last board meeting in relation to that. But we do want to use obviously social media, as well as obviously, as Kristen spoke before, there's some people that aren't on social media, so we got to sort of get their input. So hopefully we'll probably be looking at a forum-based poll that links to obviously our social media outlets being the group, so that we can have a lot more of a community feedback in relation to organising events.
Yeah, that sounds great. Nothing more to say about that.
Cool. All right. Is there anything else? All right. It's all over to you, Greg.
Thank you, Paul. And
I've
Callum.
got a duck, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. See you later, mate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Disconnected from your channel.
So that covers the events thing pretty extensively, and I do recognise that that topic does probably generate the most questions, because that's basically what we do. We put on events for people to take part in, and outside of events time, everyone does their own thing, but generally speaking, that's what we're here for. The last two topics I had on the agenda were to do with ATC services and pilot services, and Those categories are pretty general. There's a lot of stuff that we've already discussed that could fall into both of those categories. But I guess I'd just, in closing, given that it is 1.5 hours into our meeting now, if anybody's got any questions relating to ATC or pilot services that you think we should provide.
Just, Greg, can I just ask, are we an ATO? And if not, is there any benefits in being an ATO?
Do you mean an authorised training organisation for pilot training?
Affirmative.
We were. There was a period there a couple of years ago where we put in a significant amount of resources to put together a pilot training program. We put together a team of pilot coaches, if you like, or instructors. And that ran for probably 12, 18 months, probably nearly 2 years, and it saw very little participation. So we basically decided that we could allocate our resources elsewhere. It is my understanding that similar sort of training is provided by various virtual airlines, etc. And at the time that decision was made with that in mind as well. In answer to your question, not so much anymore. It was a case of a very, very poor uptake in that at the very beginning.
Okay, that's a shame because we've got a few people actually on this channel now that would be excellent resources in actually teaching people how to actually really fly a plane.
Yeah.
Hello,
yeah,
James.
These are things that I have considered myself, especially in the last 12 months, given that I've gone through the same training process. And it's something that I'm interested in providing. Maybe not so much as a registered ATO with particular ratings, but certainly in providing more support to pilots through articles, videos, posts and so on regarding helpful hints and so on to help people to develop their flying into something that is a little bit more high quality and able to I guess make everyone's enjoyment a little bit better. I mean, it has to be a completely voluntary thing because some people just want to jump on and fly, and that's entirely okay as well.
We can't stop them?
No, we can't.
Okay.
User entered your channel.
Personally, I enjoy providing services to like a lot of pilots, even when it's only 3 or 4 over like a 5-hour period. It's still a lot of fun. Good to see a few people around the place.
With ATC training, Greg, do we, because it's been a very long time when I got my rating, do we do anything that concentrates on Metro Delta airports, such as Moorabbin, Bankstown, etc.?
The new tower rating course that was developed probably 18 months or so ago now does touch on it a little more than the old tower rating course did. But again, that's an area that is possibly lacking in our training, and it's basically related to the fact that there's very little VATSIM competencies that are applicable in that sense. But yeah, if you wanted to check out the updated tower course, there is some information in there regarding Metro D.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because it's great to see guys want to get on and do that stuff. A lot of them tend to control it like they are in Sydney Airport or Melbourne.
Yeah.
If I could jump in on that one, it's a bit of a weird one because as a training organisation, we have to go according to the competencies that VATSIM sets. So we're not allowed to assess people on anything that's not explicitly listed in the VATSIM global ratings policy. We do touch on stuff like circuit traffic and that sort of thing, but a lot of the procedural stuff is handled separately in the procedural course and doesn't really translate directly to the Metro D towers.
Okay, so it does come down a lot to the controller wanting to learn that by reading the TMAs and charts, etc. like that.
Yeah, perhaps
correct.
that's something we can do better at.
I kind of did discover that it is a little bit of a grey area for a lot of controllers when I tried to sneak in a Victor 6.5 into Perth, and there seemed to be a lot of confusion about how to handle VFR traffic in and around the controlled airspace, even though it is part of the assessment. So I don't know whether we need to revisit that or not.
Yeah, I think that's related to the fact that people rarely get to practice that stuff.
You could say the same with helicopters coming out of Sydney.
Exactly.
I mean,
Just on
it's
ATC training. Sorry, you can go, Kurt.
User entered your channel.
I mean, it's easier for me to fly VFR around Perth because I know where all the visual reference points are, but as much as I'd like to participate in flying VFR around Sydney, I've just got no clue.
Yeah, that's actually, because I did the VFR stuff, we often do that sort of thing. So often it's a good idea to look at if we could make available our flights for a VFR. A lot of them actually explain where the visual reference points are to the various Class Ds we go to. So like Bankstown will go into via 2RN, or we'll go in via Prospect Reservoir. Or same thing, we did the Victor 65 departure a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, like I said, some of the ATC don't actually know what that is, so they don't handle it too well. So it would be good to actually see everyone, if they need practice, to look up the VFR and see where they're going and maybe stick themselves there for an event, and they'll get plenty of practice then.
You see a lot of pilots flying on proper VFR published routes. No normal, just VATSIM member has access to those unless if they're connected to like a real world pilot stuff.
There may be some IT developments coming in that respect to assist pilots with charts and general information like that.
Yeah, well, people have to understand if you're going to fly on a published VFR route, you have to consider that there may be a controller that does not know where that published VFR route goes, and so they are allowed to question where it goes. And most of the time, the people online flying will publish a photo, and they will open it up and then use that as a reference. But if you don't, just accept the fact.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay, moving on. We do have a couple of we have our regional director here, and we do have a representative from the VATSIM Board of Governors present for our meeting tonight. I guess I can open up the floor to any questions of a VATSIM specific nature. If you'd like to text them through to me. To start that off, Joel and Mark, the first question that's come in is regarding progress on Unicom CTAF voice possibilities for the future.
So that question is probably Mark. Yes.
Yeah, it helps if I have a microphone going. I saw that question come through a little earlier on. It's still in the makings at the moment. The VATSIM code of regs doesn't specify there can be, and that's certainly been the hold-up that Ross Carlson's looked at as far as vPilot goes. I'm going to be flagging it again. The biggest problem we've had here is a bit of resistance from the founders. And so there's a few little things going on that I'm personally trying to resolve in that area. That said, one of the biggest complaints that we constantly get is the fact that a lot of controllers are not handling or refusing to handle text pilots, which is of a concern. And I've got to make sure that people still remember, even if we end up with voice enhancements in any way, it also relates to controllers. So it's not just a pilot thing. It's about how the technology will work. It worked okay for FSN, but there's definitely some work to be done in that area. It's not a 2017 thing, might not even be a 2018 thing. There's a fair bit of work to be done. We're also in the process of updating the whole voice codec to improve it because it's, the best part of 15 years old, and that will probably come first. Hopefully that answers it, Greg.
The other thing also to remember is that whilst it's not something that's covered by VATSIN, there is still the capability of using CTAF frequencies if that's the desire locally. There's obviously the post on the forums which says how you can use that if you're using VPilot, and obviously FSN still works. So there's nothing that prohibits it, but certainly nothing that makes it any easier for you.
Can I just pipe up here? Sorry. Yeah. As again an explain user, we don't have access to CTAF voice channels. I mean, this puts us at a extreme disadvantage in these situations, and I firmly believe unless everyone can access it, no one should be forced to access it.
The developer
find that
of
Yep, you got it.
X-Score Box is an Australian guy, and he's actually said, I think on the forums, I remember reading in the same post that Ross said it, that when VATSIM approves it, Ross will make his client work, and the X-Score Box guy will make his client work. So that's not the issue. They can and will make it work when it's allowed to be used.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
can tell you now that Chris Collins, who's working on it, is definitely working on improvements to X-Score Box, including being able to update it to suit any new codecs and new protocols as they come out. So that should be on a similar page as VPilot.
And
Matt,
Matt, I was just going to point out that what you're referring to is.
What you're referring to is.
Yeah, no, very good.
That was number 3.
I was about to raise it.
He's gone now.
Yeah, I was about to
Yeah,
raise
I mean,
what you're referring to is.
Sorry. Yeah. I have seen that as well, and yeah, I'm happy for it. I just want to make sure that certain users don't get, left behind in this. That's all.
My understanding.
Sorry, Mark. What I was
that's
saying
right.
before I got disconnected again was that the voice CTAP and Unicom thing is fast becoming a minority group rather than a majority group, especially even in our region. I'm still an FSN user on FSX, and it's very, very rare for me to see someone in voice Unicom. So more and more people are using VPilot, which doesn't support it. X-Score Box also doesn't support it. So when those two clients that are in current development do come up with the functionality because VATSIM wants them to, they will. So I don't think pilots are going to be left behind in that respect. Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
That's exactly right. They won't, just to keep Skinner's mind of these, they will keep up with. I'm in constant contact with Chris Collins, who's developing X-Score Box. He's taken it over from the original code. Ross is ready to go. The Swift guys are looking at it for Swift, so it will happen. It's just a matter of patience is a virtue.
And at the same time, though, we need to keep up our conversations around it and not let it go quiet, because one of the biggest users of the old CTAF stuff was people from VATPAC. So I think as a division, you need to keep the conversation about it going so that it doesn't die off.
Mark, is voice Unicom on the cards, or is it just CTAF only? And if so, what is VATSIM going to do to curb the abuse of Unicom, which we currently have on text, which is quite easy to hide? It's a little bit harder to hide it when it's in your ears.
That's one of the major concerns, that there are a lot of it's that abuse aspect that we've got to try and address. So there's lots of things. It's not just a simple case of putting it there and making it work. There's a lot of work to be done. And the other thing too, with a voice, it's much harder to track down abuse and who's doing it than it is for a text pilot from a breaches of the code of conduct perspective. So all that stuff's got to be taken into consideration, which is the reason we get a new codec.
Because with text, it's easier if it starts to get a bit out of hand, especially in Europe when people are telling you what they had for dinner and where they're coming from and how many passengers they've got on board. It's easy just to hide it, but if you've got to listen to it, it's people are going to tune out and turn it off.
Have you found that here in Australia, Kirk?
That people abuse Unicom?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I haven't flown in Australia for quite some time because I'm on my trek around Europe at the moment in flight sim. But yeah, I've seen it in Australia before as well.
Yeah, okay. I think it's something that needs to be watched out for. Sorry to butt in, guys. But my main finding has been that the CTAF frequencies have mainly been used for the VFR flight groups. And with the transition, like I have, to P3D, you have to use vPilot, which doesn't substantiate voice rooms. So I was wondering if the only change that I could see that would probably make it easier was be to the VFR flight groups, just to simply change to 122.8. Then we could all be on the same voice group, and we could still use vPilot as a communication system at local airports.
So there is a program called AVC, Advanced Voice Client. It's a very old program. It's probably one of the first ever voice programs to work on VATSIM, and it can be used in conjunction with any client. So before voice was integrated into the actual clients themselves, you had to have a separate client called AVC or something, or Roger Wilco or something like that, to be able to actually use the voice component. So what you need to do is start up vPilot without connecting, then use AVC as your voice component. It overrides what vPilot does, and then you can use AVC to join to any room that you like.
I appreciate that, Joel, and thank you very much. Yeah, I have researched that one, but still, again, Greg, we're just talking about a very limited number of persons that are using CTAF in Australia. It's mainly the VFR flight group. Okay, no worries. Okay, I'd like to move on to another question regarding more for a regional perspective, and it's to do with oceanic sectors being part of the Pacific Oceanic Partnership. So is there going to be an update to include other oceanic sectors in the partnership, e.g. Anchorage, Tokyo, Easter Island, but also expand to other places in terms of other oceanic areas on a more broader VATSIM perspective? I mean, that's not really a regional question, but probably more for Mark. But so yes, is the Pacific Oceanic Partnership looking to expand to other parts of the Pacific? It would be question one.
That's not something that has been raised at all with me since coming into the role. So it's something that if it's a desire out there, I'm happy to take on board and get those things rolling. But it's not something that's been raised with me anyway.
And question number two was, has there been any talk at a VATSIM level of including the flight service station into the Iron Mike Award?
I guess I'm the only person in the organisation who can answer that. Yes, it has been looked at, and at the moment we're looking at what we're doing with awards altogether. So the answer is not at the moment, mainly because there's so few of them being used worldwide. So I think there's about 9 on the list that are currently opened regularly.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mark. And one last question, tracking back. It's an overdue question for Peter. And the question reads, is there anything we can do to ensure controllers are definitely 100% competent in all areas? Now, I don't know what all areas are, but yeah, that's the question.
As it stands, none of our controllers get their rating without demonstrating each and every one of the competencies in the GRP. That becomes an issue sometimes where controllers might get their rating, take a leave of absence or forget things and then jump on the network. At the enforcement level, once we grant someone a rating, there's very, very, very little we can do to enforce them in staying current, which is something I've brought up in the board meetings in the past. The only way we can change that is by making the training and assessment more rigorous or more strict. But at the end of the day, if our students demonstrate the competencies, we give them the rating. We can't really change that.
Just to go on that, I wasn't on that post that question, but I just elaborate a little bit. With you guys do Sweatbox for your training, and that's with Melbourne, is that correct? Melbourne Tower.
For the tower rating, we
Yes.
have scenarios for mentoring out of Melbourne and Brisbane, I think.
Is there a reason? I'm sure this is probably because it's Australia seems to revolve around Sydney. Is there a reason you don't use Sydney, being that it's got dual runways? Because I do find a lot of controllers, newbies, do jump on there and do struggle a little bit with the dual runways.
Yeah, well, we're currently in the process of moving stuff at the TMA and en route level away from Melbourne and Sydney. So we're bringing in a new Perth scenario at Perth, I think. Is that right, Zach?
Yeah, it's Perth, but we don't need to tell everyone that. But can I jump in? Just what is the question about mentoring or the assessment being at Sydney?
No,
because mentoring, we already have scenarios built for Brisbane and Sydney and Melbourne and Adelaide. There's scenarios everywhere. We just tend to start in Melbourne, I think, most of the time. But yeah, as Pete said, there's some new mentoring plans being implemented, which actually will have stuff from different airports covering the Sydney's parallel runway operations, covering Bankstown and Moorabbin operations, and stuff like that. So we're trying to prepare the students better for the exam, the assessment, and yes, as Pete said, they're covering all the competencies at the moment, but we want to make them exceed the competencies, and that's what we're doing at the moment.
From your channel.
If I can open it up for maybe a comment from whoever asked that question or anyone else, what are the areas of concern that people are noticing, maybe at the tower level, where people maybe aren't up to scratch? Are there any key focuses that you think the training team should be emphasising during the mentoring phases?
I've got something to say, but it's not on the tower level. It's more of a general level. If I can say that, or I can wait if you want.
With the tower side, I guess it's just maybe it's more the procedural side. I mean, the new controllers, once they get their rating, they want to run straight to Sydney. It seems to be the place that everyone wants to go to, and you just find maybe it's more with the procedures. They seem to struggle with the dual runways to where to send the aircraft. Whether they're not using the ATC assist, I'm not sure, or what they're doing, but they do lack a lot of, especially with the different altitudes for the prop or non-jet and jet.
Would it be too much to ask? Sydney, sorry, the only way that we can do it, really, to force people to learn it, is to designate it as a major airport, and then you'll need to get an endorsement. Now, Sydney does feature in the top 20 of the busiest airports in the world. Gatwick is at number 2, and it doesn't require an endorsement. So, and they've got parallel runways as well. So we need to look at how it's going to affect us as a division, and what sort of extra workload it's going to put on the training department that's already fairly stretched as it is now. We kind of rely a lot on people to self-learn, and if they're not going to do that, then it's their enjoyment and that they're going to ruin. I mean, we've got people here who want to fly NOTAMs and stuff like that, but they can't be bothered to look up the procedures. It baffles me a bit why some people get their noses out of joint about some realism, but can't follow through with the other stuff.
Well said. I hear.
Yeah, so just touching on the Sydney thing, coming from my background, which was ATC training for years, one of the things that we focus on is not, and we've answered this question several times over the years, is not to train people to control Sydney, but to train people to control. And in that sense, we prepare people based on the global ratings policy and the competencies set out to us by VATSIM to ensure that every controller that we give a rating to has been deemed competent in the areas set out by VATSIM. If we then go and look at other areas, so the original question mentioned not up to scratch or make sure they're 100% competent in all areas. I don't know if that means all competencies or whether that means other areas that they think controllers should be better at. And so we need to be very careful that we're not assessing extra stuff. There is a little bit of grey area that we can use to, group certain tasks under some of those other competencies, but it is a very difficult balancing act. And we need to ensure that our controllers that we put on the network are competent in those areas, but we also need to ensure that there aren't unreasonable boundaries to becoming a controller in our division. And granted, there are places around the world where the controllers that get onto the network are of a very, very high standard. However, in most of those circumstances, the training and the assessment process is vigorous and ridiculously long. And we want to encourage people to be on our network. We don't want to encourage people to go and do an Air Services ab initio ATC training course in order to control on VATSIM.
Yeah, but that has repercussions, Greg.
Sorry, what when you say that, what are you referring to?
Well, the fact is, over the last few years, I've seen quite let's just say, controllers not being really up to scratch. And
Okay.
I'm talking about basic issues.
I've heard that comment before as well, and part of that comment is as all of us become more proficient in controlling, the basic 100% competent new controller looks worse compared to us. Would that be a fair thing to say?
Affirmative.
Yeah, it's very difficult to judge what is in fact, and I've been around a while, and I've been fielding these questions for probably getting close to 10 years now, but the questions and the points that get raised in this regard are generally coming from those people who have been deemed competent at the start. They get online, they put in lots of hours, they invest time in learning new things and providing a better service to pilots, and then in about 4 or 5 years' time, maybe even 2 to 3 years' time, they start to ask these questions and start to talk about how, new controllers these days, they don't know what they're doing. And I tend to respond to that in that it's all relative to what the person asking the question understands of ATC when they ask the question compared to what they knew when they first started.
Okay, that's a fair comment, but the thing is, if you keep lowering the bar...
No, the bar. I disagree with that. The bar has not been lowered. The bar has been consistent for years, because that's what
if the bar was to
VATSIM,
be lower, yeah,
that's
the
what
VATSIM hasn't
VATSIM
changed the competencies.
tells us to do.
Yeah. Can I jump in here, because I feel as though this is the perfect time for me to jump in and give my 2 cents.
Yep.
Righto. What I'm going to say, probably no one is going to like or agree with, but maybe there should be a yearly, at least written test, because, like from my point of view, I haven't really been on much in the last 6 months. I've probably spent 2 hours controlling in the last couple of months, and if someone gave me a VFR, departure out of wherever, I wouldn't have a clue. I'm C1 rated. I've passed the test. I knew it all then. That was 2-3 years ago. These days, I honestly wouldn't have a clue, and I think that's what we're talking about here. As the more you control, the better you get. But at the same time, the longer you control, the more you forget. And maybe a yearly sort of refresher, or a mandatory, hey, look, read through this, answer a few questions, bang. All right, yeah, you're still good.
This is something that I actually came up with, and Greg and I brought to Greg and Pete a few months ago. But the problem is, and Greg will back me up, it's not something that we can actually enforce. It's not under the VATS. Once you passed your rating, you are entitled to do your rating. If it's something you're interested in, I guess Pete can jump in as well, but the training team can provide a quiz, I guess, on the academy, you know, a refresher quiz, but we can't enforce. Yeah, maybe that should enforce, but that's above us at the moment.
I mean, while it is above us as VATPAC, we do have representatives from VATSIM here. Maybe, you know, that's something that can go to the next board meeting.
Can I just jump in there? I think that what needs to be noted by pilots is there a gross ineptitude by the controller? Are you able to fly, let's say, the Monday night milk run from Melbourne to Sydney without any major divergence, without getting held for 45 minutes because there's one aircraft in front of you, without any major concerns? If you're able to achieve the flight without any substantial concerns, and you're worried that the guy doesn't know what the star is or the SID is, if the controller is competent enough to get you from Melbourne to Sydney, and you've run through 7 controllers, and you don't see a problem with it, I don't think that there is any reason why a 12-month restriction, and as been said, it's already hard to police that, would be a necessity. So as a pilot's point of view, you have to look at the fact of are these people getting you there, and are they getting you there the right way that you would expect? And in my experience in the last 12 months at least, let's just say last 12 months, forget about the last 20 years, everyone is definitely meeting competency.
From a VATSIM perspective, this very subject is currently under investigation because there are divisions out there that follow through with this by bumping people out of the roster. There is actually no requirement under VATSIM to keep a roster, but there are divisions that bump people out, and there's currently, if you keep up with the meeting minutes, they're looking at squashing this out or doing something about it, because it's not permitted within the VATSIM Code of Conduct or the Code of Regulations. We do still rely on self-learning. If you feel like you're a bit rusty, by all means, I'm sure someone from the training team will quite happily set you up with a sweatbox scenario and give you some feedback. But again, that's up to the individual to say, hey, I've been away for a while, maybe I should just get a refresher.
That's right, Chris.
I've actually had many people email me saying that, is there any chance I could do a quick sweatbox session refresher? But I've said it's welcome by any instructor or mentor, but I mean, we have the higher priorities, and there's getting our actual students done as well.
Yeah, and don't forget, it doesn't have to be a sweatbox session. The person is already rated to control, even if someone sits with them and observes what they're doing and gives them feedback on the go. That's all that's required. Just touching on what Kirk said, it is actually something that I have made representations to the executive committee on, regarding the, how should I say, the practice of the ACCs elsewhere in the world dropping pilots off their roster because they have not controlled in a certain amount of time. Those controllers drop off that VACC's roster and basically go onto an inactive roster at a divisional level, and then are subject to a transferring controller competency check when they wish to transfer back in. Now, that's not based on a judgment that they have become incompetent. That's based on a timing factor. And I've made representations to VATSIM about that. I don't think that's in the spirit of the global ratings policy, but it's just something that it's, as people have already alluded to, it's impossible to enforce under the current VATSIM environment, where we basically tell a controller, you are not allowed to control a position that you've previously been rated to control whilst we do some training with you. We can offer that person remedial training, but we cannot prevent them from controlling at the same time.
So anyone who flies real world probably would know this. It generally is up to you to keep up to date with all the processes and changes with Air Services Australia, AirRACs. If you want to go for a lesson, you're the one who needs to walk into the door of the flying school and sign up for the lesson. The flying school doesn't come after you and say, you need to do this.
Yep.
Yeah, but
CASA doesn't
Kurt-
bang down your door and say you haven't flown in 18 months. You need to do a course. You have a pilot's license. You could not fly for 20 years, and then go and do a recurrency check. But that's your prerogative.
Yeah, but hang on, Kirk. In the real world, if you don't control for 3 months, guess what happens to your ratings?
Yeah,
but that's because you're
not the real world.
Yeah, but you're saying that your analogy is it's up to the pilot to chase the information, because in the real world, that was your analogy. However, if you want to take that as an analogy, now in the real world, if you don't control for more than 3 months, you lose your rating. And therefore, this is what I'm saying. If we can have some sort of check, whatever you want to call it, re-rating or rating test every 12 months for controllers.
Yeah,
Even, guys.
Sorry, Sorry, Matt. I'm just going to put an end to this whole concept, because recurrency training is not something VATPAC can do under VATSIM regulations.
And there is no appetite at a VATSIM level. It's not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah, correct. I've already got that.
I think that we already police ourselves enough, and I don't think that recurrency training is needed, because no one does recurrency training as a pilot, and no one needs to do recurrency training as an ATC. We police each other, and if we feel that one or the other is not doing correct, we know who to contact.
Yep. Righto.
Correct.
Righto. Look, I agree with everything you said. I should be the person who is going to, trace up my fault where I feel I'm not as good. But I do feel as though, like, at least, as I said in the text, every 2 years, maybe just a little 10-question text-based thing. But that's something I'm going to have to, put forward to the wider VATPAC community and, the VATSIM community. And we'll go from there. I know from your point of view, your hands are tied.
User
So
disconnected from your channel.
Yeah, that's right. There's nothing wrong with us providing a quiz for people to do, but we cannot say you can't control until you've done that quiz.
And that's understandable. Yeah,
that's meant to be the whole idea behind Wallop. So if you're concerned about a pilot, there's Wallop, but there is no Wallop for ATC. So we have to self-control.
There is.
Same thing.
Yeah, there is.
There is, but it shouldn't be used for pilot or controller abilities.
Oh, my apologies, I didn't realise.
Okay, there's another Joshua Mikkel, if you wanted to say something there.
Now, the main reason I didn't jump in there is because you were all actually bringing up good points, so I thought I'll let it go. The main thing that I want to pull up is Greg said about 15 to 20 minutes ago that the ATC or the training department was like stretched in what they were doing. And I'm just asking Peter, is there anything that you need from like everyone else? Because I'm happy to help in like a mentoring position and get some more pumping or something if you need it.
I don't remember anyone saying we were stressed. We've brought on a number of mentors, and there's some more in the pipeline that are queued up. We tend to have a lot of students at the tower level at every school holidays, which tends to get a bit of a waiting list. I would like to point out that our current waiting list is at maybe the lowest that I've seen it in the last few years. So at this stage, I think we're well coped to deal with any influxes and the training demand at the moment.
I've been waiting 3 years for the Oceanic.
Have you completed the exam?
Sign him up. Someone sign him up.
Did you email once 3 years ago and never email again?
I suppose.
Yeah, okay, maybe that's my
Joshua's
bad.
question.
Sorry, I was just trying to put a bit of humour into
It's
this.
in the
But
pipeline.
guys, continue, guys.
It's a big pipeline.
To answer Joshua's question, the best thing that would help the ATC training department is if prospective ATC students actually sat down and read through what they need to read through, because upon recent discovery, we've seen that people aren't actually reading through the Moodle and just trying to skip through the exams and get to the practical assessment. And that's where we're finding our workload is being increased. People who read through the material, you can tell straight away, and that makes for an easy process through the exam stage. People who don't, that clogs the system. So if you want to spread the word to help the training department, tell the guys to read what they need to read.
Actually, in lieu of that, every time I get a password request on email, I check your activity log on the Moodle, and if you haven't viewed every page, and funnily enough, no one views any page, so that's surprising, except for the theory page, you are going to be given an email saying go back and follow the effective study technique, because there is no effective study. And 1 week or 1 day of study is not the minimum 2 weeks, just letting you guys know.
Good on you, Ryan. Good on you, Kirk, because that needs to be fixed. If these people are going to attempt to be ATC, they need to put in the hard yards. Like I didn't learn. You pull back on the control column, the houses get smaller. Push forward, the houses get bigger.
Do they?
And then I got an ATPL. So yeah,
Not
you've
if you're
got to put in
inverted.
the hard yards.
Oh, I was waiting for the ATPL to mention. To have to get mentioned once.
Oh yes.
DFO gets closer, doesn't it?
Yeah, how many hours?
I've got it on my head.
21.
When's the story
guys,
about
let's
getting
keep
shot
it
at with
serious.
AK-47s in Somalia going to come up? It's gotta be.
Back to the original question. Our
yeah.
training staffing is quite appropriate at the moment. I do want to point out, this has come up in the last few weeks, that our training program is primarily self-taught. So we expect all the students, like Ryan said, to have gone through the material, done the observation, spent some time understanding, and then ideally they'll get to the mentoring stage. We'll run one session, fix things up, they'll go to the assessment and go straight through. Where that tends to start clogging things up is when they haven't done the required self-study. They get to the mentoring stage, and us and the training team have to spend 5, 6, 7, even sometimes more sessions basically teaching them, which isn't how it's supposed to work. And that really adds to our workload significantly.
Yeah.
Also,
Tell them the truth. Look, son,
Also-
you really are trying, but see you later.
yeah, it's a voluntary job as well. Stop wasting, well, getting a bit harsh here, but stop, wasting instructor and mentor's time if you're not going to try. We're here to teach you, but if you're not going to help us, why should we help you?
I think it is wonderful that the mentor or the instructor actually sets time in his day to be with this person. So
Yeah.
Sessions run for about an hour and a half, and most of the time the information's going from one ear out the other.
Not only that, you've also got a lot of work behind the scenes that you do as well.
Yeah, in development of new scenarios, new training templates, and how the whole training system works, IT.
Okay, I think we've reached a point where we can call a close to the meeting. I'm sure you guys will want to stick around and chew the fat and talk issues and whatnot, but at this juncture I'd like to say thank you to everyone who's come along, whether you've sat and listened or contributed at some level. It's very much appreciated, and we all, being the staff, have an extensive list of things that we're going to need to follow up and take all of your feedback on board, and work and devote our time to giving you guys a better experience.
I'm sorry, Greg.
I'd also like to extend a final thanks to Mark and to Joel, who have also popped in from Region and VATSIM Board of Governors. I'm sure Mark has some notes that he's taken that will be useful in his meetings with the rest of the Board of Governors as well. So thank you to those two guys. Sorry, Matt, you've always got to have the last say.
Look, I just want to say on behalf of everyone here, the VATPAC staff team that have dedicated their time tonight, and for the VATSIM representatives that have also given their time tonight. I would just like to thank you for coming in and listening to us, putting the questions out to us, and writing them down and making a go of it, because that's what these things are about, as I'm sure you have discussed before. And it's just a good thing. It's what a community should do, and I thank you very much on behalf of everyone.
Thank you, Director of VATPAC.
Thanks, Greg.
Hey, steady on.
Thanks, Greg.
I run boilers, mate. I don't run VATPAC.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate that. By the
No,
way, I'll get an
thanks.
ATPL.
Thanks go to everyone who works to provide the community that we have, and that includes the members of the community as well.
Basically, everyone in the broader VATPAC pipeline.
The pipeline, yes, it's a big that pipeline.
We all know who we are.
The pipeline is getting longer.
Is the Seaway Connor pipeline or not?
And guys, I do apologise for being drunk again through another town hall meeting, but where would you be without me?
Thanks, Matt. I thought you were like that all the time.
I am.